Hello, bunksters. Mazzy here. Norman Maslov with David Bacon. David Bacon and I, many years ago, co-wrote this book, The Beatles, England, the actual first travel guide. Now, is going to sound a little self-deprecating here, but we invented Beatles tourism. At least we officially packaged it and sold it to you
We
all.
absolutely invented Beatle tourism. We were the first.
Like nobody went to Abbey Road before Liverpool before us.
But yeah, well,
But
we've told the story that when I went to Liverpool, I went to the Travel Aid, the tourist center, and asked for the Beatles stuff, and was told officially there's nothing to see, which was the
yeah, right.
inspiration for the book.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but we
Happy
thought we'd
birthday.
just do a little hangout for an hour or so, depending on how this goes. George Harrison's birthday. 80, he would have been 80 today, February 25th. Isn't there some discussion? Is his birthday actually the 24th or 25th?
His back in the day, his birthday was the 24th. And then at some point they decided it was the 25th, or maybe it's the other way around. So,
Right. Because I remember that thing that they almost couldn't find. It's like maybe he's not English. We can't find it. It's the birth certificate. Where's the birth certificate? They couldn't find it. So for a few number of years back, way back, whenever, I remember they were talking the 24th or 25th of February. So and we lost him at 58 years old. How sad is that?
He never saw 60. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Pretty sad. So we just thought we'd do a hangout here, and we're going to go through sort of some of the catalog. Not a deep dive into his catalog. I've done that. Dave's done things. And we are that first generation Beatle fans. We were like 9.5. In fact, I am exactly 5 days older than Mr. Bacon here. And we met in junior high school, but we really became friends more in high school, working on school newspaper, journalism, photography.
The yearbook was the big one.
And the yearbook. And we were friendly competition. We were filmmakers, friendly competition. My buddy Larry and I would make films, and David and his buddy, another David, would make films, and we battle it out. And then, our Beatle connection kind of brought us together as friends over the years. And then, of course, that Beatle book and beyond. We've been obsessive about it, but it's been a fun thing. So we just want to go through and show some Beatle things, talk a little about it. If you have any questions, pop up, and I'll try to keep an eye on things. I think as a reference point here,
AZ Mick.
Yeah, as a reference point here, I am into vinyl and compact discs. I'm still into vinyl. David, you're really not into vinyl anymore.
I haven't purchased a vinyl LP in 40 years. Other than
now, do you still have your Beatle vinyl collection?
A lot of it. I eBayed a lot of it, but
don't you wish you had it now? Now it's worth more.
But I'm a CD person.
Okay, that's fair. It's fair. We just like the music, so this isn't really about the formats. There's a couple of discussions we might get into there, but we're gonna go through some of the albums probably in order. This is the vinyl box that came out around, was it 2014, 2015? This is probably literally, except for a Grateful Dead Europe 72 or Lyceum box, physically the heaviest box I have that was put out. And we'll talk about the whole George Harrison thing and BMG and Dark Horse Records. Yes, Harry, you missed the first opening thing. We talked about the question of whether his birthday was the 24th or the 25th, but now they just settled on the 25th. I remember that that was a question. So if you got here on time, Harry, you would know that.
Get with the program.
Get with the program. But I'm using this because we can go through the records and kind of chat about them, talk about his music, his life, just hang out for an hour or so, and nothing major, and not definitive story. Just celebrate 80 years. I mean, it's really too bad. What would he have done? I think let's start with this news story, because this week it was announced that BMG, which is not the BMG Sony thing, and Dave can dive more into this, has acquired the entire George Harrison catalog. Now, going back in time, Dark Horse Records was rekindled 3 or 4 years ago, and they started I don't know if it's the first act, they started putting out Joe Strummer of all things, Joe Strummer reissues. And we heard this week they just signed Yusef Cat Stevens. And, some people want the whole Dark Horse catalog, but really, I can't see it commercially viable. Collectors want it. They can go buy, get the originals. I don't see anything really in there. I mean, they did put out
The one
Family
ex-
and Friends, Ravi
yeah,
Shankar stuff.
yeah. The one
But
exception I think is Splinter. Uh, uh, there's a great box set to be made with the Dark Horse Splinter material. So Splinter was his duo, folk rock sort of group. Their first album, that one, The Place I Love, produced by George, and George plays most of the band down there. It's a great album, right up there with anything that Badfinger did. Um, and then there were two other Dark Horse albums, and then Splinter went on and did some other things years later. Uh, there's also circulating on bootleg collectors what's called the Dark Horse demo. So there's a lot of really good material and there's air checks, FM, live
going,
broadcast. There's a lot of great material. So that's the one exception I think that's commercially viable.
yeah, going back in time. Remember, obviously, George Harrison was on Capitol Records, Apple Records, EMI, that thing, and he started this custom label with A&M Records, Dark Horse Records, and I'm thinking that they were really like, he put out a lot of esoteric stuff, and obviously Ravi Shankar's amongst my favorite stuff. Family and Friends. There's Jiva. They did a modern jazz chord. Oh, that was Apple. Excuse me. Never mind. But was interesting enough. They wanted George Harrison. They wanted George Harrison. That was the ticket because he was still relevant then in terms of selling.
A&M Records wanted George Harrison.
A&M wanted, and then in '76, he goes to Warner Brothers. Talk about a kick in the teeth or whatever. We don't know the history of what happened there, and eventually Dark Horse died as a separate vanity label or project label.
I always thought it was, back when that was going on, kind of unusual because that George would want to get involved with something like that because of the Apple experience. Because Apple just turned into this business nightmare for all of them.
Yeah.
When they went into it with such sort of utopian vision of, I don't know what they were expecting.
Which sounds like Apple probably
fell apart, and then why would he want to try with his own label?
Well, maybe Apple was using more of their own money, whereas Dark Horse was using A&M's money.
Could be.
Probably.
Could be.
Yeah. It's a little strange situation. So anyway, talk about this new deal.
This new thing. The little details of this, and who owns the George catalog. When this comp came out, which was 2009, the Apple material on it was credited to EMI. Okay, so they owned it. When the Apple Years box set came out in 2014, everything was credited to the Harrison estate, licensed to Universal. So sometime between 2009 and 2014, the George Harrison estate acquired the ownership of all the recordings. So now I guess a lot of these legacy artists are selling off their catalog to corporations. I mean, Dylan did it. What did Dylan get? 600 million for his?
Yeah, but this is not that kind of deal. What's interesting about it, I mean, I just mentioned this, was it 2014, 15, this box came out, the entire catalog of Harrison, and they did them individually as well, as I recall. And it's a pretty good set. It's digital sourced, and I know this isn't probably the time and place to get into the whole thing of mastering and vinyl and digital thing, but I still think there's room. And my guess is this year is the 50th anniversary of Material World, and my guess is whatever they're going to do in some kind of expanded or extra thing, it's probably already done or close to have been done. I don't know that for a fact. I still wish, and this is coming from the vinyl side of me, I still wish they would, at least for the main record, maybe not the outtakes, go back to the tapes and do a really nice, honest audio file, somewhat audio file, but at least a an analog cut of it. I think with these reissues, as good as they sound pretty good. They don't sound anywhere near as good as the original versions of these albums. And I have both American and UK versions of this one. This is probably one of the better ones. But that's something that I want, and that's a little kind of off tangent thing. So because Danny Hairston in the press release for this BMG thing said that they're going to do these lavish, wonderful packages and stuff, and of course we know that by that lavish package of the Uber box, which is massive, and in a way it's been the butt of jokes in so many ways. People like me being obsessed, and if you watch my video of the presentation of the Uber box, I'm actually slow motion pushing it in my house at the beginning of it on a like a flatbed truck or something. So it is we'll see what they're doing. I hope they concentrate on the sound, because the All Things Was Past anniversary edition, which came out a little late because of COVID and because of the pandemic, the sound of it wasn't as good as it could have been. And I tell you, I know this is all we should talk about this for a moment. I'm actually a fan and like what Phil Spector did with All Things Was Past, and I pulled out my original copy, and that sounded really good. I don't think, I mean, that's, you go to Phil Spector, you're going to get that. But I think that original record, I have a UK version, an American version of the vinyl. It sounds fantastic. And I was disappointed with the remix personally.
I agree with you. The remix of All Things Must Pass. You and I approach these reissues, I think, from a different point of view. I am less interested in the sound. I mean, the music of the original albums is available everywhere, and you can have an original vinyl or the CDs. And to my old ears, I can't hear as well as I did when I was in my 20s. They sound fine. But what I like is in the reissues is the packaging as a piece of art. I like the books that come with it and all the archive material and the supporting tracks. And I'm a fan of remixes, just because in recordings like this, Beatle recordings and the solo Beatle recordings, I mean, you and I have been listening to this stuff for 60 years, literally for 60 years, and we know every note of this stuff. And it's a remix is kind of nice to hear it in a new way.
Well, you're a big fan of like the surround, and you were telling me that Apple Music has
that this new Dark Horse deal on Apple Music. They've remixed all of George's albums in Dolby Atmos surround, and you can listen to them. I was like, we were chatting or texting this the other day. Electronic Sound album, which is no Electronic Sound, which is really unlistenable. I mean, it it makes some of the Cambridge 1969 seem like
well, it's Bernie Krause's test record in a way.
Yeah,
right?
it is really horrible. But there's actually now a surround mix of this thing, and you have this speaker, it zips all around you. It's actually kind of fun to listen to. So I've been poking around with these surround mixes, and I enjoy them because they're kind of this one, the adventurous.
Have you listened to this? Have you listened to this in surround?
Skip through it. Yeah, the song "Skiing" has this. The stuff sort of swirls around the room. Some surround mixes are kind of conservative. The Beatle ones are, but this is kind of what I like, an adventurous surround mix where stuff is coming at you from behind and in the front. And I think it's a fun listen.
Yeah, David and I have always been adventurous in our musical tastes and our experimentations. David and I are big Yoko Ono fans. We like experimental things, and I don't think this is really experimental. It's just an Indian music, and this came out in 1968. David and I were both 14 years old. And
First solo release and the first release on Apple Records.
the first solo album, and both of us include this what in your top 5 George Harrison records, maybe?
Yeah,
Me, I do.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of a special category, but it's. I love this album. Did you ever see the movie?
Yes,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
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 But see, I feel really fortunate, David and I are fortunate because at 14 years old, we're introduced to Indian music and avant-garde thing, and we both like Revolution Number 9. We like it. There's a certain sense of humor and conceptual art, and that is interesting. But a lot of people, you go on these forums that are around music forums and some of these YouTube channels and stuff, and people's heads explode when you bring up certain things, even like this. I mean, this is an amazing album. This is an amazing. It's a mix of Western music and Indian music, and it is a soundtrack. But Eric Clapton plays some great guitar licks on it. I just think this is it's a wondrous album, and obviously we know the song Wonderwall became the basis of the Oasis song, and that's where they got the name for it.
Great
So
cover.
this is
Don't you like the cover?
this is a special album. So I advise anyone. I actually have an original on this, but it'll be interesting to see. I don't know what in situation tapes are, but we talked about the Beatles a little bit, and Abbey Road has a vault, literally the vault of these tapes. And my guess is I don't know if the Harrison tapes are there. Obviously, everything has been transferred to digital, and that's not as much what this is about. But this deal with this segment of BMG, not the BMG Sony stuff that they're doing with Dark Horse. I wish at least the main albums they would do these analog versions of. And this is the last hurrah for a lot of people. A lot of people don't want to buy the same shit over. And most people that like you, David, and most of the audience, all they want are the outtakes, the outtakes, the outtakes. And we always compare, the gold standard pretty much is the Bob Dylan bootleg series, of outtakes. And obviously George Harrison's not going to have anything near what Dylan has.
Well, probably not, but we don't know what's in the art. There are hints. You and I have often talked comparing the Lennon estate to the Harrison estate and how they have approached archive material. And Yoko and Sean, I think, have been incredibly generous with what they have given the fans over the decades. Especially Yoko's the radio series, The Lost Lennon Tapes.
Yeah.
All this, they just opened cassettes and just anything that there could be, and then now the Lennon Ultimate series. There's Plastic Ono Band and Imagine, and the Harrison estate has been put out boxes like that where they have reissued the standard albums, and then there's the Dark Horse years and the Apple year boxes. But they've been rather stingy with the material, with other material. They 10 years ago they put out what was that? It's called
Volume 1, that Scorsese soundtrack.
Early Takes or something. Volume 1, which is a half-hour CD. They kind of was hooked up with that documentary on HBO.
The Scorsese documentary, yeah.
Which was like Volume 1 is this teaser. And that was the end of it. now with the All Things Must Pass box, what do I do with that?
Someone just asked, "What's a great place to start with?" I think this is. I did a video on, and we've had discussions of this on, ranking my best Beatles solo album, and this is always my number one. Now, having said that, I could interchange this with Plastic Ono Band, John Lennon's number one, depending on the mood I'm in. I mean, this is a fantastic, and again, as I said, I love the original mix. Find an original copy instead of the remix. There's a feel to it. It's a little, I hate to say organic when it comes to Phil Spector, but the original sounds fantastic if it's a clean copy. This is a good place to start.
That album, this is going to annoy a lot of people. Here's my take. All Things Must Pass. Here's the 30th anniversary version.
Terrible.
Well, except I love the cover.
Yeah, but
And
they
George is
terrible,
yeah, it's all right.
terrible. It's horrible.
It's all right. It's all right. Although, don't you love the 2000 version of My Sweet Lord?
Oh God. Uh, Actually, Analdo Fidelio's Frequency is here. He actually works for BMG. We actually talked about the BMG deal. I wish they would at least do the main albums all analog.
Yeah.
And the Beatles, all the Beatles have been really stingy about doing this, but we saw with this Revolver issue where they did the mono all analog LP, it can be done. But they seem to, I mean, Danny Harrison is promised to do these elaborate things and extra tracks and elaborate packages. And of course, as I see you said there's going to be a 50th of this. At least
Well,
do the main record this is a good sounding recording. This is recorded this is, I think, the first full record he did at Henley on Thames. Did did it at Friar Park? Did All Things Must Pass? It was recorded at Friar Park. Some of it, I can't remember.
No, that was done at Abbey Road.
Abbey Road, yeah. This one was at F Shop. This is Friar Park.
I want to go back.
Henley on Thames.
All Things Must Pass. This is going to be controversial. Of all the Beatles solo material, John, Paul, George, and Ringo, this is the only solo Beatle album that stands up with the Beatle catalog. In looking in hindsight, John had some great albums, Plastic Ono Band, Imagine. Paul's got great stuff, Ram and Band on the Run, but this is the only one with a sort of I'll say gravitas that stands up to the impact of the Beatles.
Wouldn't it be? This is like science fiction. This is science fiction shit.
Remember when this came out? I mean, this box set and 3 albums, and it was just amazing. And
$11 at Tower Records. They had a stack of them.
Sound, the Phil Spector sound that just anyway, that was a huge album. My Sweet Lord was like the top song of the year. That was 1970. It was just
again, the original sounds great. The original sounds great. But can you imagine? I mean, this is like science fiction shit I'm talking about here. But just sitting in the room with Paul McCartney and John Lennon separately, the first time they put and listened to this record, it's like our little brother. I mean, I'm being a little like, what the fuck? Right? Yeah. I mean, amazing.
And they knew all those songs because George was trying to get them to record. They all go back to the Let It Be Get Back sessions, and you can
Yeah, those of you who've listened to watched the doc
songs, George said, "Well, here's my new tune," and they didn't want to know.
I'm gonna cut forward a little bit just because that brings up talking about While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Well, actually, that's the Beatles song. What's the song? I'm going to blank out here. You remember shit better than I do. Okay, I went to see the concert for George at the Royal Albert Hall, and what is great about McCartney there, in a way, he was humbled because he wasn't. I mean, as big as he is, he wasn't the star leading the show that night. It was Eric Clapton and everyone else. In a way, these were all of George's tight friends, and the connection with Paul. I mean, Paul and George had reconnected with the Anthology and thing, but he was a little more estranged than the rest of the friends. He wasn't buddy like Eric and Tom Petty and all that stuff. And when they did the version of All Things Must Pass and Paul singing it with Eric Clapton, to me that just touched my heart because does Paul think back of the when they were working on that song, I just couldn't get it right or wouldn't really let George get it on a record at that point? I mean, sure, it happened with a lot of other songs, but that was, I mean, it's an amazing version of that song. And it's so, I just would love to have a conversation what he thought about that at the time.
With the Get Back stuff, John was struggling to come up with material. He didn't have much.
Black and white.
And George had all this stuff, the song "All Things Must Pass," which the Beatles kind of worked on a little bit, but why they didn't dive into it.
Okay, respond to this. Okay, everyone's got their thing.
Beatles could have gone. All things was collecting for years.
Well, they could have gone in any direction.
Was the direction the Beatles could have gone? Well, I no, I don't see that at all. The Beatles, there was, like apparently John offered Cold Turkey to the Beatles as their next single. Can you see the Beatles doing that?
Which one?
Cold Turkey.
Oh no.
Yeah, but
Well, it's
well,
like Revolution in a way. I mean, Ballad of John Yoko, Revolution. Instant Karma. I mean,
um,
we always talk about this. I mean, everyone knows John Lennon had no patience in the studio. He just I mean, Instant Karma is a perfect example where he wanted to record the record, press the record, get it out within a week. And that's the whole concept of Instant Karma. And he did it, and he sitting around the studio was not his thing like Paul. Even George could do it more if it was his material. And John's records usually are produced really fast. I mean, to me, Plastic Ono Band and the adjoining companion Yoko Ono Plastic Ono Band are brilliant records in so many ways.
Absolutely. The Plastic Ono Band floored me when I first heard it. It kind of has lost its emotional impact over the decades for me. But an incredible album, and those two albums, All Things Must Pass and John Lennon Plastic Ono Band, which came out the same month, I don't know. We're very close to each other.
Well, let's talk about this.
Right.
Let's move on. To follow up All Things Must Pass, which is essentially a double album with a live album bonus. So people say it's a 3-record set. Sure, it came out as a 3-record set in a box.
2 records.
The only other record I think at the time that I had a box of was Donovan's record, A Gift to a Garden. I can't think of what other, aside from classical records, and I can't think of any other rock or pop records that came in a box. I might be missing something up till that point. But what a follow-up to do this. Now, some people were upset because he started preaching more again, the whole religious Krishna preaching thing. But I say this is a beautifully recorded record too. Your take on this?
My initial take in 1973 was a little bit disappointed in that album. First of all, it was only a single disc because remember, All Things Must Pass, and then we had Concert for Bangladesh, which was also 3 discs in a box.
Yeah.
And then the Living in Material World, it did not have the Spectre sound to it, which is
Carnegie Hall. Excuse me, Carnegie Hall. Harry was after that.
This full grandiose. The what?
Yeah, Carnegie Hall. I'm sorry. Carnegie Hall was a 4 LP box set, but that was after All Things Must Pass. That was 71 or 2.
Carnegie Hall.
Chicago at Carnegie Hall.
Chicago Carnegie Hall. Yeah, that was 4 discs.
72.
Maybe somewhere in there.
71, 72. Yeah.
With the big posters and all that. I have that somewhere. Living in the Material World was, to my ears in 1973, it sounded a little thin, and the songs were kind of dirge-like, and and kind of preachy, heavy into the love the Lord sort of stuff. It has since grown on me incredibly. It is one of my favorite George Harrison albums.
I remember you and I having conversations. I don't know if it was around this time, maybe after this record came out, but especially maybe in the mid-70s on his records, I always felt George, and I kind of mocked him a little way. He put too many words in a line. Like, John Lennon was very economical in his lyrics, and George Harrison wrote some great spiritual things, but he wrote too many syllables in a line, especially 75, 76, and it's like a little too wordy, even in All Those Years Ago, the tribute to John, the reunion song in a way, there's like too many, it's too wordy in a way. Now, I think we have to bring this up too, because this missed its 50th anniversary edition. And this is one that really needs to be out there and, as a reissue. I know they'll probably do Material World first, but I think this needs a really good reissue, all package. Isn't there the afternoon show too? And
stuff? What I personally would love to see is both shows complete, because there were two concert for Bangladesh, a matinee and evening on the same day. Same track listing, except the matinee show they performed "Hear Me, Lord," and in the Dylan set, he did "Love of Minus Zero, No Limit" instead of something else. So they're almost the same set, but I would like to see both complete shows put out.
Right.
At least the audio. I don't know if they have the visual to go with it, but they probably. I'm sure they filmed both.
And I'm sure. I mean, what's great about? I mean, Dylan put that record out with the George Harrison stuff, and George Harrison's on very little of it. You know, the was it 2 years ago, the bootleg series.
Copyright.
Right. I think it's time for that. Yeah, the Dylan. I'm sure Dylan would be all in on that too. You know, remember he almost didn't want to play or almost didn't play, but I just think this was a great box, and didn't this lose out to Bridge Over Troubled Waters? I think for best album of the year, which makes sense. I get it.
No, wrong years. Bridge Over Troubled Waters, 1970.
Yeah, but what did this come out? 71.
This one, I think this one album of the year. That was also at one point Bob Dylan only had one Grammy Award to his credit, and it was for the album of the year for a concert for Bangladesh.
Yeah, you know, Harry, in terms of the explain the cover, it's funny. My girlfriend Nancy in San Francisco at the time managed a group called Mel Martin and Listen on Inner City Records, a jazz artist. He's a soprano sax player, played with Boz Scaggs and stuff. And they used a photograph that they got of the same photographer. What's his name? Russell Kendall Johnson did the cover photograph. Can I explain it? He does this phonogram type of almost like X-ray photography. You know, obviously, you know, it's the material world. Like there's the money, and there's like probably the Krishna. There's something with the religion. So they're, you know, holding on to religion. I'm who knows? Can I explain it, Harry? No, but you know, there was that time. Well, can you explain it any more than I can?
It's
that
nice
was really bad.
I like the inside that cover there, which was taken. That's not Fair Park. A lot of people think that's somebody's lawyer's house in Los Angeles.
And they retouched in some faces like Gary Wright. Gary Wright's not there. You can tell
in there.
Nicky Hopkins, Jim Keltner, Ringo Starr,
Ringo, and Jim Horn at the end there.
Jim Horn and Klaus Vormann. Is that Klaus?
I believe so.
Yeah. I mean,
this is a great album, and it was also came out. There was kind of in 72, 73 this Beatle renaissance because they had broken up and sort of gone away, and then that was a big hit. Paul had a big hit with My Love and Red Rose Speedway, and what did John had something? Oh, Ringo's album came out.
That was a big. Ringo had more hit singles than all the other Beatles combined off 2 albums.
Yeah, good time. And the Red and Blue album Beatle collections came out, so that was good.
Okay, let's kind of go through some albums a little more.
Dark Horse came first.
Let's talk about David and I both. I saw 2 of the shows. 2 is it? I think he did one in Oakland.
No, he did 2 shows at the Cal Palace.
And one in Oakland.
And 2 shows at Oakland Coliseum.
I saw both places. I don't remember if I saw 2 or 3 shows.
Once again, an afternoon and an evening show on the same day. What artist does that anymore?
Well, the Stones did that at Winterland in 72. But you're right. It's been years. Now, this is the thing. In 1974, we both went to see. We didn't go together. I didn't go with you to see this. I don't think. Did we? I don't remember. I went with Larry, but anyway.
We were both there.
It was the most exciting thing because
we're seeing a Beatles.
We had never seen a Beatles. We never saw the Beatles. We never saw a Beatle live. So going to the Capitol and seeing this, and I remember being so excited. It had a great band at the time. Obviously, you know, one of the highlights of the show was Billy Preston for a lot of reasons. And as soon as George opened his mouth and sang, and his voice was gone.
Poor
I
guy.
thought, okay, warming up, his voice was gone. And his voice was gone. You know, the running joke on this is Dark Horse, Horse. Not only did he record a record with that voice, and there's some great songs on this, he toured with that voice, you know, and he was, you know, what the fuck, George? I mean, take a year off.
You couldn't do that. I mean, there was this business deal and this big production. He should have canceled the tour, but skipping his voice. I think he put together a really interesting show. And
yeah, he did.
He was touring with Ravi Shankar, who had like a 20-piece band or something like that. This Indian orchestra.
And I love the Ravi Shankar section.
And then George had his kind of almost an R&B band with him. Tom Scott
Robin
on the
Ford,
horns and
Tom
Billy
Scott,
Preston on the keyboards, and the set list. George has gotten a lot of crap through the years because he did In My Life, and he rearranged it completely and put new lyrics to it. And but it was kind of a Dylan-like thing, you know, because Dylan is always, you know, reimagining his songs. I thought it, you know, again, minus the hoarse voice, which he had no control over. I thought it was a really interesting show. I would like to, you know, hear more of it.
Well, see, this is where you and I disagree, and I read the forums and the Beatles forums sometimes, not as much as you do, maybe, but everyone wants like live footage and live recording of this concert. I don't.
You want to block out the memory of it.
At the first show, I brought in a small cassette deck and a cassette player, and I recorded the entire show. And I for months I played it in my car because it was the first time I saw a Beatle. He did In My Life. He did the John Lennon song In My Life, the Beatles song. Yeah, it's now it's on tape. I have pictures that I took from that show that are great. I was bringing my camera, my 35 Cameron with a 200 millimeter lens, and now in terms of rarities, there's different versions with this size Krishna, larger larger and smaller, but. And then Peter Sellers is the picture inside is let's say we promenade through the park.
Let's say we promenade through the park. Yeah.
George Harrison and Peter Sellers. The songs are great on this. You know, it's just his voice.
Yeah, and a really weird rewrite of the Everly Brothers, right? Bye Bye Love, about because Patty had left him for Eric Clapton, and Eric Clapton's on that.
Yeah, again, and he has too many syllables in some of his songs, you know. But I do have a spot in this. I think it's one of the best covers of a George Harrison album cover. I love the cover art. Picture of him, young picture in school, hand tinted. You know, it's a good album, but again, that vocal thing really threw me for a loop when I saw him. So, you want to go talk about this right now?
Yeah, then that one came out. That's probably his low point. Extra texture.
This is a good example of great friggin' songs, but there's something off about the production or something. I mean, I like You. You is sped up, isn't it? Isn't like it's
You is I think You was actually done for somebody else, and then wrong speed.
Oh, the bat right. Was it what's her name? The singer
Spector.
who was
I think it was maybe Ronnie was
not Ronnie Spector. The woman who was on Apple.
Doris Troy.
Doris Troy. Was it Doris Troy?
Maybe.
But this Guitar Can't Keep From Crying is kind of a fun sequel to the Why My Guitar, which is a great song.
It's got this sort of 70s synthesizer sound to it. Like the bass is a synthesizer on a lot of the tracks.
And the tracks go on too long, I think, in this case.
Yeah, it's like okay. Although George's sense of humor shows up this not him again thing, because he had been a lot of bad press after the Dark Horse tour and all that. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Don't you think maybe George should have worked with a producer. I mean, after the Phil Spector thing, which I think he always thought it was too overbaked, which I don't. I as a fan, I like it. I disagree, but maybe it was Ronnie Spector. Spector. I don't know. I wish there was. I don't know. I can't think of who now. In retrospect, in the '70s, but he needed, a producer.
Yeah. It's okay. I like whatever. Great Cloudy Lies. I like. Anyway, I think a low point for George.
Yeah, so around that time, he creates Dark Horse Records around this time, maybe a little before that, and he doesn't put anything out on Dark Horse. I mean, he's still signed to Capitol, EMI, and Apple. Well, Apple part of that. He, puts all these records out, Splinter and Jiva, and I think Jiva had 2 albums. The band with Hugh McCracken and Jim Keltner.
And things were not going well for him. And when the Dark Horse tour was panned, and
right,
the album didn't sell very well, even though he was touring to support it. Extra Texture did not really have a hit single on it. He got hepatitis. Was rather ill. Then there was there was the My Sweet Lord.
The lawsuit.
So he got sued.
Chiffon's He's So Fine,
For He's So Fine, which he lost. So all this stuff was going on. But then he moves to Warner Brothers.
Well, wait. Harry, my buddy Harry here, Harry Music Room, the highlight of his was his guitar solo with Cheech and Chong on Basketball Jones. That is great. Right. I mean, what was great about George, in a way, he became this better gun for hire. He was doing a lot of like L'Angelo Misterioso. I mean, that was, the different names he played on the Mylon Lefebvre, Alvin Lee record. He was on a lot of records. I think he liked kind of being that side man.
There's a really good bootleg set. I think it runs 4 CDs called Spot the Looney. And I was just looking for it. I don't have it somewhere. It's got all those things, all the guest shots that George has done,
but then he pisses A&M Records off. I remember reading about it. I don't remember all the details, but he has Dark Horse Records, and they want George Harrison. They don't give a shit about these other records that are not selling. Even Splinter, those records weren't selling. I mean, it was a vanity thing in a way. But then he signs he signs to Warner Brothers, right? And he puts out what I would argue is his first comeback record, right?
Great album, 33 1/3. You got that?
I remember picking this up in the morning. I had at San Francisco State, I had a noon class or something, and I went to the record store on the way to class, and I picked this record up at the record store. So I had the bag with the record in me, some large group of some, I don't know, sociology class. This was the comeback record. This is where, and he goes on Saturday Night Live eventually, and he, Woman Don't You Cry, Dear One. This song, his response to that lawsuit you were talking about, was a hit.
Crackerbox Palace.
Crackerbox Palace. And he's hooking up with, the Monty Python guys and making the videos. And this is an upbeat, happy record, really well recorded. Did he work with the Warner Brothers team on that? Did they help him on the production? I don't remember now. He produced it, but assisted by Tom Scott. There was something really different about this record. It was like a freshness. He was getting a little sleepy way too early with Extra Texture.
Yeah, the songs are all great. The videos that go with it, you mentioned the Saturday Night Live he did with Paul Simon, doing 2 duets, Here Comes the Sun and Homeward Bound. Was great. Right. And then the videos for Crackerbox Palace and True Love and what's the other one? This song were really fun videos. I think with Eric Idle's participation, they were big.
And the version of True Love, which is is it the Hoagie? Is that a Hoagie Carmichael song? I think, or no? That's I'm thinking of Baltimore Oriole later
from High Society, Bing Crosby.
Yeah. And Harry says it again. Harry, you're like you're feeding us the right shit. And he meets Olivia, who's working at the LA Warner Brothers office, promo stuff for Dark Horse and Warner Brothers. And of course, they fall in love, and rest is history there. So that's a good thing too. But I mean, a good relationship with Warner Brothers for the most part. And this, I mean, this was a great, great comeback record. So
then he followed it up with the self-titled one, George Harrison.
now, in the box set, is this next?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, we should know all this shit. Okay, in the box
George
set,
Harrison haircut?
in this box set, this digital box set, which some people don't like the mastering, the sound of it. This is by far the best sounding record in this box set, sound wise. This sounds fantastic, and this is a very good record as well. Love Comes Everyone. Of course, he revives Not Guilty. You want to talk about that?
We revised it. We hadn't heard it till then, but Not Guilty was done for the White Album by the Beatles and left off. Since been released, and he kind of resurrected that. Here Comes the Moon, nice beautiful song there. It's a really wonderful album. What was there was a hit single on there.
Blow Away.
Blow Away, yeah.
Blow Away was a hit with that giant duck. Giant ducky, the video. God. Okay, the worst part of this record, you know what the worst thing about this record?
His haircut.
Is permanent. George Harrison has a perm. He has a perm. He's in Hawaii and has the friggin' perm. Come on, George. Faster's a great song on here.
Yeah.
Dark Sweet Lady, If You Believe. This is a very positive record. Obviously, soft-hearted Hannah is in Hawaii. This is he's with Olivia. He's in love, and they get married. This is a feel-good record. It's a great sounding record. Produced by George Harrison, Russ Titleman. Russ Titleman is one of the staff A&R producers at Warner Brothers. Russ Titleman, Letty Warnicker, all those guys that worked. This is a really good sounding record, and I think he needed a partner, and so this is a highlight for me too. So, well.
So then, what's up there? Somewhere in England, right? Different covers of that. This next song, this one caused problems for him, because he finished his next album, Somewhere in England, and submitted it to Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers rejected it. Warner Brothers would not put it out, saying it was too dreary. So George goes back into the studio and he strips off 4 songs and put some new stuff on. That's the Blood from a Clone. This one had a hit single. There was a Beatle reunion tribute to John Lennon all those years ago, although that song was originally, I think, earmarked for Ringo with different lyrics. And they had backing tracks, Ringo on drums, and then John's dead, and George revises it as a Lennon tribute. And then Paul and Linda overdubbed vocals to it. So we had, the Threedles on there, and that became a kind of a hit.
Yeah, this is the one where he does the 2 covers. I mean, he was always into that.
The cover with the satellite picture of England.
Well, Baltimore Oriole and Hong Kong Blues. He brings this again,
Hoagy Carmichael songs.
Hoagy Carmichael thing. He always loved that kind of stuff. I would say the worst song on here is "Blood from a Clone," and again, it's too wordy, too mouthy. One of the best songs that could have been a hit. Remember, this is 1980, 81. So there's all the dance music is out there, post disco and everything. And Teardrops is a radio friendly hit that could have been a hit. Maybe it's too late for George by that point, but it's someone else singing that song with a powerful, soulful voice. It's a great song.
That's one of the upbeat ones that Warner Brothers wanted. That was one of the new songs on the revised version. Warner Brothers wanted a hit single and something more snappy. So Teardrops was one of those. Okay.
Yeah, actually, Tom, I like Baltimore Oriole. I like the Hoagy Carmichael song he did.
George
I get that.
Doing that material is really good.
But Save the World, it goes like, oh god, it's like cliche thing. It like save the fucking whales. I get it. You know what it is? If you're, it's so weird how John Lennon wrote the songs on the biggest cliche songs. Give Peace a Chance. Come on, Cold Turkey. I mean, but he somehow, power to the people, right on. For some reason, he made it, at least for my taste, he made it work, and either musically or his lyrics, he didn't go overboard with his lyrics. But George Harrison, you got to save the whales, you got to, save the world, and his voice, George Harrison doesn't have the strongest voice, and I love George Harrison's voice, but yeah, it kind of almost breaks. You don't hear it breaking and cracking, but he's got a thin voice. I mean, obviously, it's hard to compete with John and Paul, but that's what he's doing. So he needs to, he should have done more ADR, auto double track. John didn't like his own voice, and he would do that ADR on Beatles songs, automatic double tracking recording, and he should have done that a little more. But this is a painting from the Tate Gallery. And of course, they did change the cover. The original cover was a black and white. Do you have that? I don't have it handy.
Trying to find it. I do not. It's a black and white picture of George, and his hair is kind of melting into a satellite photograph of England.
Take some balls to tell Beatle go back and do something better. Too bad they didn't do that with some of Paul's stuff, right? Well, yeah, talking about lyrics too. Paul and George went through a period of really shit ass lyrics, and we're big Beatle fans. But what's great about David and I think all our history, we're not Beatle apologists. There's stuff we love, and even though we still buy the stuff, and McCartney, every album there's 3 or 4 friggin' amazing songs. Every album, and there's a lot of
3 or 4 that should, or not.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well,
here I'm going to toss out another controversial statement. George Harrison's solo catalog is the most consistent of all 4 Beatles. Most consistent. George does not have quite the highs of John and Paul. Look, John's highs, Paul's highs, but he also doesn't have the lows of John and Paul, because John and Paul's low point are pretty bad. George's albums are pretty consistent. And
now, do you consider this a high or a low?
There's another one. At the point when this album came out, I didn't like it at all.
It's actually grown on me too.
I thought it was his worst album.
It's grown on me too.
It's grown on me a lot. I like this album a lot.
I love the cover, and the cover is so great that Paul McCartney ripped him off.
Do you have Egypt Station?
Right. Paul. I mean, this is a Paul painting, and you don't think. I mean, is this a coincidence? Maybe, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, as soon as I saw this, I thought, oh shit. I mean, come on, look at this. I mean, It's like, let's get the PMS color palette that George used on this thing from the Warner Brothers archive, or who did the cover. Tom Rashawn, you work for Warner Brothers. Do you know who did the cover here? Tom Rashawn's in the audience. He used to work for Warner Brothers, and he worked for Capitol. Oh, Tom, are there, David? You like this? Do you have the John Lennon box, the white square box, CD box?
I don't.
What the fuck?
I don't have. Sorry.
Tom designed it.
Hi, Tom. Well done.
Dave, you gotta get it. So who designed this?
Who designed the cover? I don't know. Roy Kohara.
Oh, see, they don't even credit the artist here. That's how shit ass is that? I mean, this is like Gone Fishing, Gone Tropo. Get it? Whole.
Yeah, that album, I think, is upbeat. I think it's a really good sounding album. The best song on there, I think, is "Dream Away," which was done for the Monty Python Time Bandits film.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
He does
now. Circles. Talk about Circles.
Circles was demoed by the Beatles. It was on the Easter demos for the White Album. Never recorded, so that song dates back to the Rishikesh and the Maharishi days. I think it's a fun album. And again,
it's
the
very
time
tropical.
At the time I hated it, but I think it has grown on me.
I think part of the thing is, and he didn't care. And what I love about George, he didn't care. He didn't care about commercialism and everything. This had no relationship to anything that was happening in the 1980s musically,
Mhm.
and which is fine. I mean, all the power to him. Instead of jumping on the trend, the nice thing, he didn't jump on the bandwagon. I mean, even Paul McCartney, these artists that try to do either disco when they weren't disco artists, or they tried to do electronic, like all the synthesizer, the drum effects of the 1980s, that shit ass tinkle piano, electric piano thing that ruined some 80s tracks. He didn't do that. At least he didn't stoop to try to make something trendy. So people like you and I were buying this stuff, but no one else was really,
And then
right?
no one bought that album. It did not have a hit single, and I think at that point George said, "Fuck it," and he was tired of being a pop star, and doing interviews, and he just kind of just went away for quite a while. That was the last we heard of George Harrison for quite a bit. Although he was producing movies, he had handmade films. But he was kind of quiet for a number of years.
Yeah, Life of Brian with Nail and I, Shanghai Surprise, which almost busted the company. Remind me when this comes into play. Now, this was never released in America initially. What year was this? What year was this live?
Yeah.
He does.
Norman is wrong. It was released in America. Okay.
It was?
Yeah, it was. When did that come out? That came out. Well, didn't Cloud Nine came out first? So we have Cloud Nine.
It came out on CD, right? I don't remember now.
Yeah, well, it was released. But find Cloud Nine, because that's a better story for it.
Okay. The next comeback album.
He kind of links up with Jeff Lynne, becomes good friends with him, and Jeff Lynne produces this album, and that was a huge hit. Now, this album has decreased in my point of view. I don't like this album as much.
Really?
When it first came out, it's a good album.
He does that cover, and now the ironic is that the cover song was a hit. I mean, that was the big first single. What's it called? Got My Mind Set on You. Got My Mind Set on You. That
which is the last number one song, the last number one single by a Beatle.
There you go. And Godley and Creme directed that great video. What a great fun video on it. Yeah. Eric Clapton plays on a great thing. I like this record, Cloud Nine. It's got the Beatles song again.
It starts this collaboration with Jeff Lynne. It lasted the rest of his life.
Right. And of course, this led to Jeff Lynne being involved in the Anthology in '95, the Beatles. And thing is, Jeff Lynne.
The Traveling Wilburys, because
Jeff, of course,
that was done. They Warner Brothers wanted a B-side for some single for this, and so they had George had this Handle with Care song, and Jeff Lynne had been working with Roy Orbison with his comeback album Mystery to Me, whatever that was called. So Roy Orbison was around. And Tom Petty or Dylan had a recording studio in his Malibu home, so it just sort of fell together, and they did Handle with Care, and it was so great that Warner Bros. Says, well, you can't just put this out on a B-side, so they went in and made the entire album.
I remember getting a 12-inch single of Handle with Care. I think it was a 12-inch single, and I played it for a mutual friend of yours and I, Leo. And he goes, oh, that's never going to be a hit. This guy worked in radio. And then, of course, it became a huge hit. I mean, this was, this is what he wanted to do, being another member of a band with people that it was equal all around, even though he was the ringleader. It was pretty equal. And, of course, Roy Orbison. And Jeff Lynne was produced Roy Orbison, Tom Petty. He produced everyone here except Dylan, right? I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, we can go on and on, and they do. And then Roy Orbison dies, and this
Volume 3. I love that.
Volume 3 comes out. Typical humor stuff.
So the back
So
Alive in Japan was this Clapton's idea. George, I don't know, was after the Dark Horse tours, no way he was going to tour. But Eric Clapton said, "Well, look, I got this band. You don't even need to rehearse. I mean, we got this. We got this." And so George, with Eric Clapton's band, did this short tour of Japan for I don't know, six,
it's
7,
too
8.
bad he didn't tour America with this one, because this would have been a good,
Yeah,
it was time. It was a good time.
too bad it didn't start. Uh, um, you know, George Harrison live. George dives into the Beatles catalog for the first time. It's an okay record.
Yeah. You know, let's talk about, I mean, in 95, the whole Beatles anthology happened. We're here talking about George Harrison, just random stuff. Any questions? We're just hanging out on what would be his 80th birthday. But, I mean, there's rumors, I don't know if he's in rumors about the financial thing. And part of the reason George Harrison did the anthology because of the financial, uh, what he can reap from that. I mean, obviously, probably this person who got the most benefit out of it was Pete Best, who finally got several $1 million.
That was nice of them to do that. George's business manager, I think Dennis O'Dell was.
Dennis O'Dell, she
I think
stole.
they ran off with the money with handmade films turned into a big financial problem.
Very much like what happened to Leonard Cohen when his manager stole his money. He had to go start touring at 60 or 70 years old or something,
Yeah. So the 90s, mid 90s, George agrees to do the anthology. I think for the money. Although, I love George's interviews for that. George has just this great sly sense of humor.
It is, what's good about that is when you see him and Paul, all of a sudden Paul's not the hovering figure he was early, like with Get Back and with other things with the Beatles. He's almost like, okay, George is equal to me now. I mean, whether he's thinking it or not, you look at that and George is like, if you ever seen video, this is probably not as bad, but if you ever seen videos of the last Police tour where Stuart Copeland is just pissing the fuck off of Sting. Those two guys hate each other. And this is Stuart Copeland just lighting a fire under Sting, and he just loving the snarkiness, and Sting just can't handle it. But it wasn't that bad. But you're right, George Harrison didn't give a shit. First of all, they're at Friar Park. They're on his home turf.
Yeah,
and they're hanging out there.
George had power back then because they couldn't do this reunion without him.
Right.
That's how he got, who's going to produce the songs. He got Jeff Lynne to produce it, Free as a Bird and Real Love. I think Paul was a little, I don't know about that, but Paul, what could Paul do?
Let's talk. I'm going to talk about that because now we're looking back. It's been almost 30 years since the anthology. It's 28 years, and I remember being sort of a lot of trepidation, excitement, like, oh, they're going to redo the Beatles, and it's that whole thing like Natalie Cole and Nat King Cole, dig up your dead father, your dead whatever bandmate, and make a record. And it can be very questionable. And Yoko gives this tape of obviously 3 songs they submit, and Free as a Bird. And of course, those of you now, it's funny talking to certain age people. I don't know who's watching, or most of them maybe are older, maybe not. That ran for, was it 3 or 4 nights, 3 nights on ABC television, on prime time television, which is rare these days. And there's at the end of each night, at least the first 2 nights, they debuted the new Beatles song after the first night, which was Free of a Bird. And this famous, and I'm blanking on his name, commercial director directed this sort of video, animation, some effects. And I remember watching it with my family, and my son was 5 years old. God. And I got a little tear to hear this thing. And I actually really liked it. I like how they did, they added a verse, Paul and John they had the middle chorus, or what do you call it, the break, middle 8, whatever, that Paul wrote, and George Harrison slide guitar playing. And it had that psychedelic sound and the phase shifting a little bit at the end with the drums. And it sounded like a Beatles song. and it's not this greatest thing ever, but in that sound like I'm the Walrus, where the vocal is squashed and it's manipulated, and I really enjoyed it. Real Love, I didn't love as much, but Free as a Bird, I really enjoyed when that came out.
I like the album. I like Real Love better. But both of them.
Excuse-
But
This is like Siskel and Ebert. No, you're wrong.
Herman, you ignorant slut. Those two songs, I love them both, and they are the cherry on the sundae, because it was, the Beatle breakup was ugly, with lawsuits, and the John and Paul sniping at each other in their songs, and how do you sleep and all that stuff. And then with John dead, that ended the possibility of a Beatle reunion. But this is the best we could get, and so thank you, Yoko, for donating those songs. And I thought the Threedles did a great job, and I consider them Beatles songs. They are part of the
Yes,
Beatles. They are part of the Beatle canon. Apparently, there was a third song that they were going to work on, Now and Then, which they started to, but George did not like that. So Anthology 3 did not have a new Beatles song on it.
Right, right.
It
was nice to see the three of them. It was nice to see the three of them sitting on the grass when Paul and George had the ukuleles and playing around, and I wish there was more foot of them jamming in that studio, in that natural light area there on some of the outtakes and things. And anyway, it was a great thing. So I think we're going to wind down a little bit, but let's talk about, Happy Birthday, George.
Happy George. One more album.
At the beginning of this, we talked about this BMG collaboration with getting the George Harrison catalog back. I hope they do some good thing. I hope, from the vinyl side of me, I wish, and it's probably already taken care of and done in high-res files. I'm sorry, but I wish they would at least do really good mastered for the proper album vinyl analog versions. And then the outtakes, he didn't give a shit about that. Most people don't give a shit. That's the point. That's why these people don't do it. Most people don't give a crap. Now, in a way, I don't give a crap either, because I have all the originals. I have UK and American copies. So in a way, I don't need them, but it'd be nice, since the tape, what are they going to do? Save the tapes, put them in the Smithsonian, and keep them in the vaults at Abbey Road or Frere Park, wherever they are, I think we have to skip forward. Obviously, George Harrison, I don't want to get into the whole downer stuff, but the last couple of years, he gets cancer. Someone breaks into his house, he gets stabbed. It's like, what a fuck up, man. And it's so sad. He died at 58. He was working on an album, again with Jeff Lynne, and actually at home, and his son Danny was there, because he had a studio at Frere Park, Henley-on-Thames. Obviously, this comes out, and what's kind of hysterical, there in some interview or something, he says to Jeff Lynne, just don't ELO it too much. There's a sound, that ELO sound, confusion, that they do that. Just, I like Jeff Lynne, I like ELO, but you're right, he has that sound with the drums. It's like ELO, the last few ELO things, like, get a friggin' drummer, Jeff Lynne. Don't do it yourself. Get a real drummer. Where's Bev Bevan when you need him? But talk about this, David. Brainwash. This came out posthumously. They finished it off.
The deluxe version of the CD box.
Right.
This, After All Things Must Pass, I think this is George's best album. This is an incredibly great album. And it was done, because posthumously, George, in one of his last interviews, said he had about 35 tracks that he had been working on through the years. He just liked to record in his home. So Danny Harrison and Jeff Lynne put this together, finishing off the songs. Apparently George also left detailed notes about how he wanted the songs finished. Great album.
Any Road is a good song. Yeah.
Any Road, the instrumental Marwa Blues is beautiful.
His voice seems better on this.
Another oldie, American standard, Devil in the Deep Blue Sea.
His voice is deeper on this, and maybe he was getting sick, but his voice is deeper. I think I like the timbre of his voice on this album more than a lot of the other albums. And I like, Marwa Blues is this slide instrumental, very much like a Ry Cooder piece, and Ry Cooder really helped these guys, him and Keith Richard, get more into slide guitar playing. Yeah.
Wonderful album. I hope we get more. I hope this new deal opens the vaults. Don't ELO it too much. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So the George Harrison's catalog is going to be coming out again. Now, let's talk about an honest question. I know it's his birthday, and we have to be all like holier than thou about it. Is there a huge demand for this entire catalog?
I'll buy it. Automatic pre-order.
Oh God. Yeah. How many years are you going to own that actually at this point? No, but seriously, I mean, what I could see All Things Must Pass and a handful of records. Now, are the Wilburys part of the catalog to BMG too?
Yes, yes, they're part of the deal. The Wilburys,
okay.
all of Dark Horse, look. I'm going to give you an example. This is a great box set.
Yeah,
Bobby Gentry.
Bobby Gentry, that's great.
Beautifully packaged. Is there a market for this? I mean, who the hell is Bobby Gentry?
It's sold out.
He had one hit, and then put out 6 albums or whatever.
That's sold out too.
Yeah, I know, and it's beautifully done. So
that's the same style as the Lennon, Imagine, and Plastic Ono Band. That's, I kind of like that. The thing is, McCartney was doing it with his Anthology series, which is pretty good. They're consistent. What I don't like is these bands. I mean, that's one disappointment with the Dylan anthologies, right? They're all different friggin' sizes in some cases. Now, I mean, they're sort of the same.
There they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you could, the Beatles ones, they're here. They should be consistent too, but they're all the different designs.
Exactly. I mean, Revolver and White Album.
I think there is a market especially for us aging boomers who still like physical media. I like. Well, you and also I differ with the idea of streaming, because I stream stuff all the time. But I love box sets with nicely designed packages and the books and interesting liner notes. That one's kind of, no, I do not need little plastic gnomes for $1,000.
I wonder, since he's going now to BMG with his catalog, if Universal is going to blow out these things. They got some left. The Uber box. But
there is a market for this stuff, I think. Especially us boomers who have disposable income now, and the kids are grown and out the door.
So let me just show. So there's my George Harrison section is there, and there. There's a header card from my old record store days. I don't know if you can see it there, but that type of thing. So it's I don't know. We talk about the catalogs. I think its catalogs a bit inconsistent. They're records I go to, but I think it is time for maybe a looky look again. I don't quite know the audience, and I've heard rumors about with this shift to BMG, rumors that the Harrison estate wanted too much money to do the boxes they wanted to put out in Universal, or whoever balked, and BMG is throwing whatever they want at Harrison, and I just wonder what the market is to do these sets like that. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a great.
This is Lennon Anthology. I'm trying to there. All outtakes, live stuff, overview of his entire career. I would love to see a George Harrison version of 5-6 CDs of our archival material. I think the CD is designed for these archive releases. Not, I know this is where we differ with with LPs, and it kind of rubs me like the last two Beatle ones were sequenced for LPs, and then we get the CD.
Yeah. Well, we're in a it's funny.
Half an hour of empty time on the
There's a dissolution or a delusion that vinyl has taken over CDs. Now, this is a little thing that's off the track. They look at the dollar sign. Vinyl, dollar-wise, has sold more last 2 years than compact discs. But the unit cost, CDs have sold more because vinyl is like 2 to 3 times the price. That's the only reason that vinyl is more. Now, vinyl has grown a lot, has a bigger increase, but it's still not unit wise. It's not selling with CDs. But
and physical media is a minority now. Completely.
Exactly. And it's all about the streaming, like you said. BMG has all these things. For instance, the Harrison catalog on Apple, Atmos surround. Most people. I mean, I had a surround set up 5.1. I discontinued. I don't really care anymore. I want my music just stereo. I appreciate people wanting that whole surround thunderous thing. I don't need that for my music personally anymore. I tried it for a decade, and it just after a while, I had these back speakers that were collecting dust a little bit, so I brought them downstairs and expanded my 2-channel system down here. So, but happy birthday, George. I don't know what else. Any last words, closing words about George Harrison? I mean, it's so sad when someone dies. So young, 58 years old. I mean, I'm 10 years older than him now.
It ran through my mind watching the Get Back, Disney documentary, Peter Jackson. The amount of smoking, they were like chain smoking. And I was like screaming, "Stop it! You were going to die of lung cancer in 15 years."
It's funny. We talked about that when they put out that George Harrison Volume 1, that record that came out in CD that came out. And it was never a Volume 2. It wasn't even the joke like the Wilburys. It was meant to be a series. And for an outtake collection, it was pretty pathetic. I really disliked that Scorsese documentary on George Harrison because it was kind of Beatle heavy. It didn't really, I don't know, provide it didn't provide a really good look at the man and the music and stuff. I thought it was very weak. It seemed like plug and play documentary personally. Of course, it was interesting to watch because I'm a fan, but I thought it wasn't well done at all personally.
Yeah, it was far less than I thought it was going to be.
Like I mean, Scorsese's on the band.
Like Ron Howard's Beatles film, 8 Days a Week, was not what it would have hoped it was going to be.
Yeah.
But again, this hints at because this got it's got a lot of outtakes, but it's got Let It Be Me, the Everly Brothers thing, and Dylan's Mama, You've Been on My Mind. Stuff that was, I don't know what the hell they are, but it's stuff that's lying around on tape in George Harrison's archive, and hopefully we'll get Volume 2.
Any comments on the pirate song?
If you've never seen the pirate song on YouTube, everybody go look up the pirate
George
song.
Harrison, the pirate song.
The
best, one of the greatest things.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to close out now, but one of the greatest things about George Harrison is his sense of humor, his wry sense of humor. And the reason, he put the money into the whole handmade film thing started because funding got cut off for Life of Brian because of the religious, oh my God, like mocking Jesus. He basically, and he got part of Pink Floyd to put up the money for it originally because he just wanted to see the movie and laugh. And what a great way, to start a production company. Of course, it went sour later with Sean Penn and Madonna and Shanghai Express, and then his producer Dennis O'Dell ripping him off, and which is kind of sad because I mean, I think one of the best movies, obviously Time Bandits is a good one, a fun, wholesome movie and really well done. But With Nail and I, to me, is the kind of unfounded masterpiece of handmade films. And they use actually a Beatles song in there, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, is used in the soundtrack. And it's just a wonderful, kind of quirky, weird ass film.
That played at my theater back in the day.
Pardon me?
Cranberry sauce. I agree with you. Cranberry sauce is commenting Lumberjack song, and he likes John and George did Cry for a Shadow.
I have the Monty Python single version of Lumberjack that George produced. He produced a single version of that too. So, you know. All right.
Birthday, George.
That's it?
Good.
All right. Again, David Bacon is in Massachusetts. I'm in Seattle. David Bacon is a co-author. We did this Beatle England book in 1982, travel guide, out of print. You could probably find it on eBay or on Amazon, and you'll probably pay more. You'll probably pay more for shipping than you will for the book now. Yeah, that's in our youth, all those years ago.
All those years ago, right?
So anyway, thanks. This is going
to George.
Happy birthday, George. This is going to stay up. So happy birthday, and Mazzy loves you.